admit.
Oh, Jesus. All right, just let me know when we're live. I mean,
All I'm saying is if the figure was 6 million slashes, wouldn't seem as bad, would
oh
it?
my God.
You'd be like, maybe he fucked him over. Maybe when Hitler was a young artist, Slasher was like, don't hire him. He's a piece of shit. And then he found out years later, maybe he read Slasher's diary, much like Anne Frank's diary.
My God.
And he was like, wait a minute, what the fuck? You fucked me over.
All right, guys. So welcome to Unfiltered. And this is the Unfiltered Esports. First episode of Unfiltered Esports. For those of you that didn't catch all the announcements and all that good stuff that I made earlier this week, we're going to have two different kinds. This is going to focus only on esports topics, while the other one will be more like esports or Unfiltered proper, which will be a lot of the other stuff, mostly the other stuff, and a lot less esports. All right, today, of course, joining me as always is Richard. He's going to be continue co-hosting. Actually, both Unfiltered. And our guest today is Duncan Shields, aka Thorin, and I'm sure you guys know him. I don't really need to introduce him other than he's a historian. I guess I will introduce you. Historian, analyst, caster at times, writer, content producer. God, what don't you do now, man?
Don't do a lot of things, mate. Don't do a lot of unethical things. So I realized esports already, that makes me very unique. So just start there.
Okay. Don't appear on shows with Destiny either.
The word on the street. Don't hate your phone too, mate.
Oh man, the chat's loving that, I'm sure. But yeah, got a lot of topics today. Some interesting topics. WCS, of course. Lots. Yesterday, one article from Stephen Chu like lights up a shitstorm. So we'll be talking a little bit of that, especially with Duncan here. Then kind of extending a topic that we did last week, which was creating reality stars in esports and the value of it and just the necessity of it nowadays, especially for teams and even the developers like Riot. Then we'll follow up with a topic about just star players and the influences they have on their teams and their rosters, kind of just paralleling this a little bit to the whole LeBron James things recently and seeing if this happens in esports or if we're close to that. And then lastly, we'll continue some little old boys club talk that we started last week. Richard came out with an article that talked about personality and professionalism, so we'll touch on that. Q&A, of course, at the end from you guys. Post your questions to Unfiltered GG, the Twitter account, and we'll read them off at the end. So let's start off with some WCS and StarCraft. Thorin hasn't really talked about StarCraft in a while, but Stephen Chu came out with an article on ESPN.
To be fair, you don't talk about StarCraft that much on the show, mate. So.
On the show, well, true. On the show, I don't, but I still love StarCraft. But do you watch StarCraft actually? And before we start, do you watch? I don't
watch very much now, mate. The thing is, nowadays I only watch when it's like the players I really like to watch.
Yeah.
So if the people I think are really hot, if they go like deep in GSL, I'll watch like some of the semis and the final. But I don't even pretend to follow that game. It's never been one I was super into. It's more like when it was really big, then there was lots of attention on it. That's why it was really cool to follow. But I think it's got its problems, that game.
Nick and Dan are back doing Brood War though, homie. Like you've been watching that?
True.
That's the funny thing. I've watched way more Brood War because I was actually watching that even before they came back to doing it. But yeah, I think it's pretty good. Because the amazing thing about that, for anyone who doesn't know this, like say anyone who only followed StarCraft 2 and they haven't followed the Brood War stuff, is that it's not as though all the players in Brood War are just people who were like terrible at StarCraft 2 and that's why they quit and were going to play Brood War. Some of the players there were like probably half the field were all like 18 players when StarCraft 2 came along. So actually, it's the level of competition is still pretty good in that game, even though obviously it has no proper pro scene and is never going to be like a big sport.
Right. I mean, I guess it says a little bit about, or says a lot about StarCraft 2 if it's, the Brood War. The predecessor is still continuing to go on. But WCS, so again, like I was trying to lead in, Stephen Chu came out with an article. And what's funny is that, like the article itself, I don't think anybody had a problem with the article itself. It's just the ESPN Esports Twitter account, definitely promoted it multiple times too. Like they tweeted two times prior to the last one, which, you know, really.
Okay, let's see where you're going to go with this. What did they do wrong? Just man.
Well, I mean, you know, it was obvious. The last one was obviously clickbait, where it said that, you know, basically.
What does that mean though? I'm inexperienced. So what does the term clickbait mean?
It's gonna stir up some folks with the whole, you know, there's never gonna be
is that a bad thing? You're not supposed to have a title that stirs up any sort of emotion, make someone click.
I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying.
Just asking.
That one.
Said it in kind of as though that was a bad term, clickbait.
No, that's a general term. But that specific tweet, the one about Flash, you know, definitely like it was like stepping on an ant pile, and then your tweet right after it definitely caused a shit, or at least a lot of StarCraft 2, or a lot of people from the StarCraft 2 community to just, you know, chime in there, and it just became just a big old mud fest. So don't really want to talk about the mud slinging and all that craziness that went on Twitter, but I did want to get your opinion on it, because, you know, your actual comment there, you know, even though it was, you know, it was purposeful, I think, just to get people riled up. You know, I know how you are. Like, I know you like the you know, the best StarCraft. You're just like watching watching the best players play each other. You don't really care so much about where they're from. You know, you follow the Brood War scene, so the Korean scene has always been the focal point of StarCraft, and it remains there from the standpoint of just the highest skilled players. So want to start off by asking you what you think about just the WCS changes for 2016 generally.
Okay, so let me think. Part of the big problems I had with the WCS changes were that I don't even think they were presented very well in terms of like trying to communicate to people what the point of them was. I think you'd be very hard pressed to look at all the changes in totality and come up with like a simple identity for what the point of the change is. Like, who are we trying to help here? What are we trying to do? Because, for example, the area where people like me have come out is obviously the idea that we don't like the fact it will hurt the Korean scene. Because for the Korean scene now, there's like the potential for there to only be something. It's like 4 tournaments in the year, and there might be like 1 or 2 more added. And the way they're spaced out, true, if you get into the tournaments, you get a lot more money for the last places. But if you don't get into those tournaments, you could be sat around. Bear in mind they run parallel. If you don't get into both leagues, you could just be sat there for 6 months with nothing to enter, and you literally can't go potentially to a DreamHack, to an IEM, to whatever other tournament it was. You don't have a choice. You just have to sit there and essentially it's like, unless you have some really good salary from your team, you're just going to be homeless essentially, because you're not going to be making your money from StarCraft. So I think that's really bad in terms of hurting the Korean scene, which is already like completely beaten down and on its last fucking legs before one day they just pull the plug because StarCraft 2 is non-existent in Korea as an actual big esport, you know. So there's that aspect. But here's the part people don't seem to bring up. As far as I can tell, it even hurts Westerners. Like, one of the ways they tried to do, here's the problem that Blizzard have. Blizzard themselves don't want to present this as like racism. They don't want it to be like, we are just against Koreans. So what they had to do as their trick to make it so that it wasn't, these rules are to ban Koreans. They said, all we're going to do is ban anyone, no matter what country they come from going into other regions unless they have a work valid visa there, or they've, you know, even if they do, then they have to play like X amount of games there. The problem with that, as far as I can tell, is technically it means that even NA players are going to get hurt by this, because now they have to play more games every month on their dog shit server with all the morons on there, rather than play on the European server if they're on the East Coast, play on Korea if they're on the West Coast. So even NA players are going to have a lower level of quality in theory in their practice because of these rules. So I think there's a lot of problems with all the rules and not that many benefits brought to them. Like, I think it'd be hard pressed to find a really good benefit. And just as a side point I want to make as well is I don't even see any problem with the ESPN stuff. So the article Stu wrote was fantastic. He is one of the best writers in all of esports. And the idea StarCraft 2 people shit on him. Some of those people are so fraudulent, it's unreal. The same people who made tweets that were clearly saying this is all bullshit, then later on were like, no, actually, I love all your work, man. It's just like the tweet I was mad at. Like, suck a dick. You didn't say anything about the tweet. You didn't say anything about the tweet.
Well,
you just said this whole topic's bullshit and fraudulent and it's all nonsense and you're wrong about all this stuff.
See, that's where I think I got kind of misconstrued, just the people replying, because a lot of times whenever you do work, you know, you're the person that tweets it too. And in this particular case, you know, Steven didn't tweet it. In fact, like I said before, it was tweeted like multiple times. It's just this last one, right, was tweeted by ESPN. So I think the responses, again, I felt like they were more towards just whatever connotation that tweet was making versus what was actually in.
Okay, but here's the
itself.
problem with that. So I haven't seen a single person, no matter, like Apollo, a fantastic expert about StarCraft 2.
Yeah.
What did he explain was wrong with the tweet?
Sure. Okay. I mean, but again,
what is wrong
like,
with the
it
tweet?
was.
That's what I'm asking. I mean, I'll find the tweet now. As far as I can remember, the tweet went along the lines of, I need to get the exact wording of it, but the gist of it was like, due to the problems in Korea, like there will be no superstar who can replace Flash or something along the, or no, who is it going to be at the, like at spoiler, no one or something like that. It's phrased along those lines.
Something like that. Yeah.
Like, here's the problem with it. I've got it here. Who will take Flash's place as a StarCraft 2 superstar? The answer, a shrinking talent pool, means no one will. That's not sensationalist. What is sensational about that is that that's the actual fucking world that really exists in Korea in StarCraft, and that people in the West who get paid to cast Western leagues and who are in favor of all these blocking Koreans want to pretend that doesn't exist and that there aren't blood diamonds being mined off in like fucking Somalia or wherever that is.
Well, I don't
they want to
think
pretend that doesn't exist.
Well, I don't think I don't think it's so much that they don't want to. I mean, they're pretending that doesn't exist as much as. See, the thing about this whole WCS thing is that there's definitely two angles to it, right? Like how it affects the Koreans, and then how it affects the foreigners. And how it affects the Koreans, I don't think anybody would disagree that this is worse off for the Koreans, and whether like improving it for the foreigners meant having to hurt like Koreans, I don't think that was actually necessary. Like I think Blizzard could have done something to help with like more events in Korea and that sort of bit.
Yeah, but let's be real. Where's the fucking priority at, Chris? Like, I mean, seriously, look, the Koreans have dominated the scene. Yes. That's immensely frustrating if you're not a Korean. I get that. But let's be fucking real. Like, there's been so many things in StarCraft that people have never talked about, like problems endemic to Korea, which when there's even the faintest waft of them in like NA or Europe or any Western region, people are up in arms about them. Koreans are dealing with that shit day to day. Another fucking point that this article touched upon, which nobody seems to have been up in arms about, because of course you might have to do some self-examination for not caring while also simultaneously professing to care about the health of the game, is that there's a lot of Koreans that are getting fucking pushed into these team houses, and Duncan will tell you some of the Korean team houses are some of the most disgraceful, squalid living conditions I've ever fucking seen anybody purporting to be a professional fucking athlete live in. On top of that, they're not getting salaries, right? Like, they're being forced to do all this fucking shady shit on the side just to make ends meet. They're living on curfews. They're not allowed girlfriends. It's unfucking believable, right? And then, no one's up in arms about that. They go on and succeed anyway. And then actually some Westerners even think, oh, well, because they live in those terrible, atrocious conditions, if we replicate them in NA, that'll be the success. And you see people doing it because they're fucking retards. But nobody's ever going to get up in arms about anything that hurts Koreans. And what Steven's done here with this article is try and highlight that actually the Korean scene is hurting too. And everyone's like, preposterous, la 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 la, NA's going to achieve things on its own merits, la 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 la. What the fuck is up with that?
See, I think that's that's an exaggeration. I mean, they're not saying that. I think there's this
actually, when Huck wrote his response, he literally repeatedly was disingenuous with the way he phrased the scenario. So what he did was he said, if you look at like the top Koreans versus the top Westerners, like they make more money. In fact, even like mid-tier Koreans make more money. Here's the point you might want to mention if you're an expert about StarCraft. The mid-tier Korean who makes more money, significantly better than even some of the best Westerners. That's a point to make, I think, in a competitive discipline, right? That should this person make more money? What is it? Some sort of competition? Yeah, probably based on how good he is. No. But what country is he from? Like, how would that be a reasonable discussion to have with someone?
Well, again, like
also, remember, if you're the bottom level Korean, here's the worst part about being the bottom level Korean. You are in hell. You can't, if let's say you're a rising star in the West and you've never actually had your big tournament placing, you're not on the big team, you don't get the big salary, right? So you're not making much money. You're making the $200 a month. Here's the great part about that. You live at your fucking house, you sleep in your bed, you see your friends, you play some competitions. If things go really well, you go all in for 2 months. If they don't go so well, you take a little bit of time off, you play some other games on Steam. If you're the same exact person, but you're a Korean, here's what happens. You must move to Seoul. Now you must go into a semi-pro or team house. Now you're in the team house, you are the fucking bitch. No one cares about you. You are not even considered worthy practice. You will have to literally grind and beat people better than you to even get proper practice. And this is all before you ever earn a salary. This is all before you ever get into the leagues. This is all before you ever get any of the benefits that people like Huck were making out as though you were just like bestowed upon you because you came with a passport that looks like a fucking Pepsi logo.
Yeah, and you know, and seriously though, like this is like the West is doubling down on the fucking lie, and it's pretty much always been a lie that like South Korea is this fucking mecca of esports where people leave their house and because they had a deep run in a dream hack once, like everyone drops to their knees or senpai or whatever they fucking say out there. Like they don't get recognized on the streets. They got a fucking PC bangs. No one recognizes them. No one knows who these people are. Right. And yet because the West has like been like, oh, they're so advanced in Korea. They do things so much better than us. Everything's so sophisticated and scientifically judged. And there's a nutritionist in every house and not just some cunt who fucking cooks up a big bowl of ramen for 10 people and slops it out.
Here's a funny story, Richard.
It's bullshit.
So I've actually been in Korea before where people who were just randoms, like when I was at a train station, have said to me, why are you in Korea? And I say like, oh, I'm here for like a games tournament or something. And here's what they say, Richard. If they actually know about StarCraft, they go, oh, Im Yo-an, boxer, right? And I go, actually, this is when I went back in Brood War. I went, well, actually, he hasn't played in about 4 years in a proper game. They were like, oh, okay, he's not the best anymore. And I was like, well, no, he was the best in about 2001. Like, it's about 2011 now. Even worse than that, a friend of mine who lives in Korea, every time he goes through the customs, people find out that he's there on a special visa because he's talent to work for in esports. So what they always say to him is, do you know Guillaume Patry? Now, Guillaume Patry was a pro gamer in fucking 2000. They're not saying even, do you know Flash? Flash is a superstar. Right. They're not even saying that. Forget anyone in StarCraft 2, mate. They have never heard of MVP. They don't know who the fuck Life is. They don't have any clue who SOS is. Yeah. Yeah. And he was on the side of a plane at one point in time with the advertisement. They don't know who this guy is. No one knows who he is.
And this is what I mean, like the way it's always been fucking framed in the West is that like they're living some fucking decadent rock and roll fucking lifestyle.
I don't. That's not
bitches
true.
And money. Everything they do is better than what we do. Well, if you're saying it isn't true.
No, in the last couple of years, that's definitely not true. I mean, I even remember. I think you were on were you on Climbing the Ladder at the time we had Jenna on? I can't even remember if we were.
Oh, yeah, I might have done that episode.
Yeah,
and
I
remember it anyway.
Actually, it was Mark. Okay. Yeah, Mark.
Well, to be fair, if you'd had Jenna Bain on, she would just tell you about how everything the Koreans do isn't as good and how they should just like spend $20,000 a day on all their players and give them foot rubs. So I guess it would have been a different tone there, ChanManV.
But the point is that I think that facade or that whole perception, I think it was starting to change at that point. Then we heard about all the Slayers players, right? They're in shitty living conditions and all that those things. And I think that started to stop the whole romanticizing these Korean players. You found out more and more that it was only a few players that were even revered, as just respected just for playing.
Fact that we're even having to deconstruct a fucking mythology in like 2014 or whatever it is, after like all this time of it being spread, and people are doubling down on it. That's why they're attacking Steven's work right now. That's why we're all trying.
So, Chris, didn't you just say that this was never, like, this isn't a perception anymore, that they're all rich and all that of that? Well, what the fuck is Hawk talking about? He's specifically saying that they're all making more money. And that's why it's not as big a deal that they make less and have less tournaments now and that the Westerners get a helping hand. Nathanius literally said, I almost cried laughing at this. Firstly, because, I mean, he's barely relevant anyway. But when I did check his comment, he said something along the lines of, like, he wanted to help out the scene that's been really, like, beaten down the most. I thought, oh, yeah, finally, someone who's in favor of the Koreans. NA. I was like, what? Do you know who Huck is? When was the last time he placed top 8 in a major tournament? He's doing everything. He's making salary, going to tournaments, also. This has been the opposite. That's the scene that's been propped up on that. The fucking maker of the game, because they're Americans, are going to fucking prop the game up for people from NA.
the thing is, like, as long, right, okay, we all know, right, and this is just, again, just real talk. We all know NA is a region when it comes to esports. They are fucking, while the Koreans are out there living on that diet of ramen, the NA fans are living on a diet of fucking excuses and bullshit about why they can't succeed, why they can't deliver. The more you double down on this myth about Korea being some godlike region where everything's superior to everything we do, is it makes you have the excuse. It fucking validates that Blizzard are going to completely change and push out one entire fucking race of people just to give you a chance to get to a fucking BlizzCon. It makes it okay. So of course everyone's going to bullshit about it, but it doesn't make it any less fucking bullshit. That's all it is. Like, you know, look, I love the fucking my involvement with the StarCraft community. I got loads of friends in there, but let's fucking flag down a taxi and ask for Real Street. This is exactly what is going on, and I can't believe people are like trying to pretend, oh no, there's some sort of balanced reason for it. Actually, NA people have it so fucking tough. The amount of fucking bottom tier, washed out fucking talent that lived like kings just because they had personalities. Right, compared to what happens in Korea, where if you have a personality, you get kicked out of fucking team house and you're destitute and on the streets because your parents rejected you because you told them you wanted to be an esports fucking player. Another lie that's like fucking fostered by the West. Oh, yeah. And so I said to my parents in Korea, I want to be the next Flash. And my parents supported me in my dream and they hugged me and gave me all my money. Every fucking Korean I've talked to has some fucking horror story about how they told their parents they want to be a pro gamer and that was it. You're out on the fucking streets. You're not a doctor. You're not a lawyer. Fuck you. You're worthless. It's unbelievable. But yeah, let's pretend none of that's happening while a bunch of fucking Americans living in frat houses. Total Biscuit was right. He was fucking right. A bunch of people living in frat houses are getting fucking overpaid. And fuck Korea, right?
All right. So I think a lot of the things you're talking about are like from 2 years ago. You know, when we had some of these teams that were paying, you know, their players a lot of money that were North American teams. But we're talking about 2015 right now. And the last 2 years of WCS, it has been like, for the most part, the prize pool and things, I have been very friendly to the Koreans.
Oh, that's a shame, isn't it?
No,
Hear this, Richard. So you know how you know in the past those
Duncan, let me finish. Let me finish, dude. Come on. And so, you know, the thing is that the last 2 seasons we have had a structure in WCS that was favorable to Koreans, that we're supposed to, you know, help foster them, let them go to other events, you know, let them earn money that's not being offered to them, like in their region itself. And you know what we've seen, and
what does that mean? Can you just explain that?
I mean, just
again?
in Korea, just in
the line where you said like that it's supposed to help foster so that they can earn money and go to other events. How did WCS earn them more money?
I mean, WCS themselves. I mean, WCS. I mean, they still had GSL, right? But they were still, for the most part, free to go to all the other events. You know, like there was no rules to restrict them from doing so.
I'm so confused by the phrasing, though. What do you mean favorable? As in a competition that was supposed to find the best StarCraft player allowed people who were really good at StarCraft to play in it, and that's like a favor or something.
Well, it's not the WCS. The main storyline was, you know, it's very. Okay. It was still very, you know, like the structure of it was still, you know, it was still set up so that the best players would be at the finals of BlizzCon. And, you know, the top 16 would be there. And for the most part, it was the top 16 Koreans. There's, you know, Lilbo was an exception last year. But for the most part, they were there at the end. And the structure was meant for the top 16 players in the world to be there. And it didn't have so much to do with regions. I mean, there was American region, there's a European region, and there was the Korea. But for the most part, the storyline was to get the top 16 players there. And we saw that. We saw, you know, and all the community, I mean, as much as you say that we complain about that and stuff, we're all there at the end, you know, rooting, you know, just at BlizzCon cheering for these Korean players, right? So in the end, you know, the community has accepted this structure. But looking at the growth of StarCraft, I mean, we've seen it just slowly deteriorate. We've seen more and more foreigners just become less interested in the game. And from a global stuff, just from a wider scope, just like take a step back and just the health of StarCraft, should we support the Koreans more? Yes, we should absolutely support the Koreans more. I don't think anybody's complaining, like I don't think anybody's denying that. It's just when people start thinking that we can't support the foreigners and support the Koreans is where the problem is. And that's where Blizzard, you know, needs to step in more and provide more resources to be able to do both. Because right now it's almost mutually exclusive, or it's like being argued that way. And
There's two arguments here that both are different. So one is, how do you get enough money for Westerners? Because apparently they're not winning enough money. That's one argument. The other argument is, how do you make the best tournament? The best tournament, it would be anathema to the concept of the best tournament to ban people and say, you can't play this tournament. Why? Well, you're too good, aren't you? What? So I can't play. Well, you're too good and you come from one specific country.
Okay, I mean, okay, you can, you can definitely like angle it or frame it that way, but there's also a structure that is regional only. Right. And
that's the problem. Here's the thing, Chris. WCS, I never had a problem with. You know why? Because they really did call it WCS America. So I don't care if it only has Americans in, do that. But that doesn't exist, Chris. They took that away and they made all the tournaments that were for everyone into WCS West, basically. So now DreamHack, IEM, and all of them, they are now WCS. So you can't then go, well, of course, the concept was always to region lock it. No, you took all the tournaments that had nothing to do with region locking and made them region locked.
Yep. And, I find it interesting as well that the people that are like pushing back on this, like, just the reality about how bad, like even mid-tier and even, second-tier Koreans actually do have it. They've all got a vested interest in this. You got Adebisi tweeting about, this Stephen Chu article. Well, isn't he like a tournament director at fucking DreamHack? Oh, aren't DreamHack part of this fucking, concerted effort to keep Koreans out? Didn't they sort of acquiesce and go along with what Blizzard want to do because they want to, do what's best for their business? How can anyone take that seriously? How can anyone look at that and say, well, that's an objective statement? Of course it isn't. You've got a vested fucking business interest in towing the party line. So, I think what happened with Steven there, like all the fucking negative stuff that came his way is bullshit. And I don't think anybody can disagree that in terms of overall quality, if all you care about, and I know this is what Duncan cares about, right? But if all you care about is just the best players making it to the big tournaments and having the highest level of competition, then obviously this is across the board a bad move. The changes are bad for that. If you care about having like somebody you could wave an American flag to and, take your pet bald eagle along, yeah, we're as good as the Koreans. Absolute lie, by the way. No matter how much you fucking prop it up, no matter what you do to construct a fantasy where that might look real, if that's what you care about, fine, the system's great.
Here's the thing I don't get. But to me, all of that stuff but what about the growth of the game? To me, that is all sophistry and rhetoric. Because here's the thing. First question, how do you make StarCraft grow? I'll tell you what my answer is, mate. I don't know. I don't know how you make StarCraft a bigger game or make it more popular.
Okay.
Everyone else knows, mate. That's why they have to do all these changes. So here's the problem. They use that to justify any change they want to make. Because since none of us know, let's just try some stuff. So here's a question for you, okay? Are you aware of the concept of market forces?
Market forces?
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, for the most part, yeah.
So here, follow this train of logic, okay? If having Westerners in Western tournaments would mean that Westerners would get better at StarCraft 2 and the tournaments would be more popular in the West because it wouldn't be two soulless Koreans playing each other. It'd be two Westerners that we all know. Follow the logic, okay? Yep. If that was the case, why is the only person who knew this Blizzard? Why did all these people with experience of running tournaments, DreamHack, IEM, everyone, MLG, why did none of them understand this? Why didn't one of them say, wait a minute, I've noticed in my demographics here that in the tournament, when in the round of 16, two foreigners play each other, they get a spike in viewership because everyone loves to watch people they can cheer for and other such sophistry and rhetoric. Which has never been...
They did know that, Duncan.
Wait 1 second. I'm going to show you. So when that happens, they'd see the spike, right? And the next conclusion obviously would be, wait a minute, let's have a tournament that has no Koreans in. And when the first person to run their own DreamHack without region locking that had no Koreans in, it had all the Westerners in, and the tournament was awesome, and the viewership was even better, the whole industry would change without any region locking. It's a lie that even just having Westerners will make the numbers higher. Why is the only person to suggest this now Blizzard? Why has no tournament done this?
Well, I mean, no tournaments has like excluded, all of the Koreans, and I mean, again, there's still some exceptions to this whole thing, but generally speaking, they didn't exclude all the Koreans. But they did. You have to remember DreamHack, right? Some of the biggest DreamHacks involved Naniwal making the finals or Savano making the finals. Okay, no. So my point is that those tournaments were, they were smart from the standpoint of like setting up those tournaments. They would invite they would invite Koreans, but it wouldn't be a large number of Koreans. It was almost like they invited enough Koreans to validate the tournament from a standpoint of just skill. I mean, and setting up that storyline. That was the purpose of it. And whenever we did see some of these foreigners beat the Koreans, there was some added and just motivation or just just the the community you drove behind this. Yes.
Here's the problem. Two key problems.
Okay.
One, as far as I know, Stefano and Nanoa didn't get to be so good that they could make it to the final. By us going back in a time machine and regional locking 3 years ago, they were just really fucking good at StarCraft 2. So there's one problem. You have no proof that by blocking out Koreans, you will now make Bly as good as Stefano was. That's not in any way being shown. So there's problem one. There already were wicked players. Problem two is that you actually needed those exceptional players to exist to make the scenario you're talking about. It's not that people cheered for a French guy. That is bullshit. They cheered for Stefano because he was a fantastic player and an exceptional charisma. They cheered for Nanoa because even if they didn't like him, he had a ridiculously polarizing personality and he was phenomenally good at the game. Sure. The whole myth that idiots like Huck constantly propagating the scene is that, when they were rich, by the way, when Huck used to make way more money than all the people making round of 4 in GSL, he would say he wouldn't have any sympathy because he'd just go, well, those people don't even know how to promote themselves. They don't know how to market themselves. Guess what, motherfucker? Are some of those guys making more money than you? But I thought you were wicked at promoting. So, you've got to have skills in the game as well now. That's a shame, isn't it? So that guy who's just killing you in the game, he makes more money than you. Jesus. Well, let me get out the tiniest violin. I mean, for you, it's a normal size Stradivarius. But let me get that out.
I'm gonna have to. Oh man, this is ridiculous.
That was a good one. I like that. A fucking cello, mate.
Oh god. Okay, so I mean, so getting back to the point, Duncan, that how to fix this, and you say you don't know, right?
I have some ideas. No, I don't claim to know, whereas everyone else claims to know.
No, but
so Cast claim to know, Blizzard claims to know. I don't claim to know. I have a few ideas, maybe.
I mean, so you keep referring to having these guys look like they're doing well. I mean, how is that going to help anything? Like, it doesn't make them all of a sudden the best players in the world or anything. But the whole thing with the foreigner scene, and there are a lot of problems, right? There's issues with the ladder. We've talked forever about a lot of these problems, but in the end, it's a little bit of a chicken and egg thing. Like, you have to create at least some interest from the standpoint of even the player pool to even want to compete. And seeing that the region, wait, hold on, let me finish. Seeing that the Korean region has always been the strongest, and literally you can't play them unless you go there, just go and travel there.
It's not to do, by the way, even when given the option. They go there for 1 month, get their heads caved in, and go, see, I'm off back to the West to play easy tournaments.
Well, okay, whatever reason, whether it's mentally they can't handle it or whatnot, the fact is it's very difficult for people to get the funding to go there, to have, to have some kind of living set up there too. Okay. Not to mention it's kind of lonely too, right? So it's mentally, it's a tough thing too. I mean, that's not an easy thing for even the foreigners to do. So there's so many things that are stacked up for the foreigners to improve. Like, forget the fact that even if they want to improve, they still need the infrastructure to be able to improve. And right now, because the Korean just the Korean server and the Korean region has always had the best players, and it's always been like this. It's been, StarCraft 2, it's been there from the start. It wasn't like we all started equally and then it just emerged that way, like some of the other esports. Actually, Korea's always been the epicenter of StarCraft esports.
Do you follow the NBA at all?
Yeah, of course I do.
Right, the majority of players in the NBA are African American.
Okay, yeah, but they're American African American. I mean, African.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure.
So should we ban a few African Americans and start working on programs to get white people into the league?
It's not so much a race thing. I mean,
I didn't make it a race issue. I made it an issue of picking one arbitrary group and deciding there's not enough of those, and they're put off by the fact that they don't grow up in the hood, they don't play basketball, they maybe play NFL or something. So arbitrarily, you've decided. That's why I asked you, why do we have to help those Westerners? Because here's the key thing. The reason why Blizzard always sell the line that it's about growing StarCraft is because no one will say, I don't want StarCraft to grow. Whereas if you tell me, I want to make Uthermal have more money, my first question would be, where are you going to get that money from, though? And if you told me, I'm going to take that money out of Dream's pocket, and Dream hasn't played worse or hasn't done anything, I'm just not going to let him compete in the tournament, and then I'm going to give that money to Uthermal, then I'd say, fuck you. That's a ridiculous notion. That's the notion you're presenting. Why? What reason do you have? We'll use this exact example. What reason do you have as to why we have to help Uthermal over Dream?
My reasoning behind it is that it's not so much about the money that goes into Uthermal's pocket. Okay, that is definitely something. It's about that person that's watching, that's 16, 17, 18 years old, that's that lives in Europe, or lives in NA and, you know, gets inspired by doing that. Like wants to, you know, start competing because they see somebody that maybe their fellow countrymen or, you know, even just a fellow region, you know, just somebody that you associate with regionally, and they get motivated by it. I mean,
have there been studies done on this?
There's no studies on it. I'm just presuming that. And like
it's
looking
exactly, it's accepted as a fact by everyone.
I don't know if it's accepted by fact, but it's definitely the, you know, it is the main argument by most folks. And some of those, like I saw Colaris's post too, right? He mentioned talking to players after DreamHack 2, and the players were excited too, just like generally excited.
See in 1 year when a bunch of them aren't anywhere near the Korean level, when they've had all this extra opportunity, you'll find out that those are just words, mate. Like, for example, Huck said no,
it's not
he talked to a number of Koreans, and Koreans were in favor of it. You know how worthless that is, by the way. First of all, different culture. They're not going to say things necessarily like, "Oh yes, I think we should just keep fucking up all you foreigners." Ridiculous, isn't it? Secondly, just because a player says something. So basically, the logic of Huck is because SOS is wicked at force fields, he also knows how to grow StarCraft. Yeah, great. Cheers, mate. Thanks for that insight.
What? No, I mean I think I know what he's referring to, but
hey, some of these slaves even like this life. They call me massa and tell me that I should whip the ones who run away. Therefore, slavery is good.
No, I mean he's talking about. I think I know what he's talking. He's talking about somebody who's you know, he's been in the scene for a while, but isn't in the scene anymore. So he doesn't even necessarily have vested interest. So in my opinion, it is more of an objective view from a former Korean player star.
How could it be objective? It's a totally subjective, opinion-based thing.
Well, okay. But I'm saying from the standpoint of like whether it's foreign or, you know, Korean, like how to structure this thing, or, you know, and having a Korean player or former star, you know, agree with the way it's set up, I think that says a lot. I mean, this is somebody who was in that movie. Okay. I mean, that's up to you to decide.
Can we talk?
Just ask him what you think it says.
Can we talk about the retarded apartheid example? That's where I'm for. Like, can we talk about that? Like,
sure,
Root Gaming, of course. Root Gaming, of course, presenting this fucking argument, like absolute ridiculousness. Like as if apartheid was just localized to like one or two sports, like cricket and rugby.
Yeah.
And was you know? Yes, it is very much like apartheid. Like, are you is this real? Did that really happen? Did someone honestly do that, comparing region lock into apartheid? It blows my mind. I mean, I don't know about you, Duncan. Does that blow your mind? Blew my mind.
I mean, I just think he picked a polarizing example.
Exactly.
I think the example wasn't ridiculous in terms of the mechanisms of the analogy.
Mm-hmm.
Just the problem is, if you ever pick an example like World War II, the Nazis, people are always going to react to that thing, not the analogy.
Which is always your go-to example for everything, of course.
Why not? That's because I don't care, man. Okay. People agree with me or get on board. I'm not trying to trick anyone.
Yeah, exactly. I honestly thought this was like, you know, it's not even a particularly, I don't know why the article blew up as much as it did, 'cause it's like about 5 words long or something. Like, it is like apartheid. It's got all the basically like my first esports article checklist. Do you reference King of Kong, Fistful of Quarters? Yes, you've done that. Okay, that's the opening paragraph. Brilliant. Talk about something from a real sport. Yes, tick that off. And then just basically say, and yeah, it's kind of like apartheid because I think it is. So yeah, it was a pretty fucking dumb article.
Like, here's what my tweet was, if you remember originally, Chris. It was along the lines of like, WCS's problem isn't nationality. It's that people who call themselves StarCraft 2 fans don't like to watch high-level StarCraft 2. That was my tweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you agree, right? The biggest problem is not enough viewers.
No. I mean, I don't agree with that tweet. I mean,
no, it's just, do you agree that the biggest problem is not enough viewers? The
biggest problem is like the end result is not enough viewers, but I think there's not enough players either. Like, I mean, there's multiple issues.
But the problem with that is when you take that premise, which we all do, it then presumes that people know how to get more viewers. And as I've tried to point out with all my points so far, I've yet to find a single argument anyone made that will definitely increase viewership. So even on the selfish dollar-based number of heads watching, I haven't even seen any compelling arguments there. So that's why once I've finished with that, then I just go to the argument of, and it's pretty fucked up that you're banning the best players from playing in the tournament, right? Which is my position.
Yeah. And here's the thing, though. It's like, I don't even get how you can argue against that standpoint anymore when everyone says, oh, like we've been saying it for years. One of the reasons why we don't get like such high level viewership numbers is because Koreans are dominating and Koreans don't have personality, and people want to cheer on players from their country, their region. Like, this has been the whole theory about how to get more viewing numbers. You know, and like, again, I've seen no fucking evidence to suggest that those people that are pushing that narrative enjoy high-level StarCraft. Because if you did, and that was all you would care about, and if you believed high-level StarCraft was what was going to bring viewership numbers, then you would be peddling the complete opposite to what they are. The idea that personality goes a long way, which I actually agree with.
By the way,
it does.
Here's the thing,
there's no question.
That's the thing, though. You can't make the dichotomy. Again,
exactly.
Whenever someone says the same thing that Chris already said, which is they want to relate to someone and all this of it. No. They want to relate to someone who's also fucking wicked at the game and has all these factors they like. They want the complete package. They want Stefano. They don't want you thermal, but for him just to not be Korean. That's not what they want. That's a ridiculous simplification of the problem here. So actually, here's the thing. Do you remember a few days ago after this incident, someone actually went back and they found this old interview I did in like 2014 with Carmack, where I asked him a question very similar to this about region locking. And I actually give a premise. I can't remember if it was in that question or the one afterwards, where I actually give Carmack a political premise. Okay. And so I'll repeat it here for you because this is a great example. But except that when I cut off at the end, I'll give my version instead of what Carmack answered, because I was just asking the question, obviously. So the example I gave was when the Schengen agreement thing began in Europe and a lot of Polish people came to the UK, there was a scenario where, because the reason they came is the minimum wage here was a lot higher than obviously whatever it is in Poland, a lot of them could get what are actually quite bad jobs, like pick potatoes was the famous one they always said in newspapers. And the idea was the person would go and get the potato picking job because it's still way better money than whatever job he did or didn't have in Poland at that particular time. Now, the biggest problem is not there, because obviously someone has to do the potato picking job. No problem. Someone's doing it, right? The problem was a lot of British people who were unemployed or knew someone unemployed, but here's the key point, didn't want to be a potato picker themselves, complained that this is bullshit and these foreigners are taking our jobs. And the reason why I gave this analogy for StarCraft is because to me it's the same thing. The reason why people lash out at Koreans is because StarCraft is in a position of scarcity where there aren't enough tournaments, there isn't enough money, there aren't enough viewers. Sure. So all they do is lash out at the thing that's not closest to them, which is the Korean person. And the fact that he's winning he should just play his own tournaments in Korea, we should have my player as a player here. Now, what's funny is Carmack's answer, which sounds good on the surface, was that the reason why it's okay for the Polish person to come to the UK, which obviously I agree with, is because I agree with it on the fact that they work harder than the person who doesn't want to do the job. But the reason why Carmack said it was okay is because it's not like they come to the UK, take the money that they earn, and then just go back to Poland with it and take it out of the economy. Now, the problem with that is that the reason why that's important, Carmack, is because the economy keeps the rest of us alive in the country and all of our services running. That's not what fucking StarCraft is. I don't know if you're aware of what esports is. It's a competition and series of tournaments to find out the best player who entered the tournament. So when I fly over to Sweden from North America and my name is Huck and I win the money, I still leave Sweden with the fucking money. It doesn't go into the Swedish economy. So that's actually an entirely spurious line of reasoning. All the money goes out of all of the economies anyway. Even if the person lives in that city, he's probably not contributing back to the fucking tournament organizer, is he? So that aspect doesn't matter whether the Koreans take the money away. So then it just comes down, in my opinion, to the aspect I said. Is the Korean guy who's better and works harder willing to enter this tournament, and can he beat the U-Thermal? If he can, I don't see why you stop him doing it. That's my opinion.
And in an ideal world, I think that is the correct way, Duncan. But it's not. I mean, like you said, there's a scarcity on an opportunity right now, and there's a scarcity, an opportunity that's leading to just basically everybody suffering right now. The Koreans are suffering. Even last year, the Koreans were suffering too. So it's just like
they're suffering more now.
They might be suffering more now, but it's at the expense of trying to grow again, like just grow the scenes in other places. And hey, it's something to try. And I think it will work. I mean,
I don't even understand the concept personally. So think of the logic.
Yeah.
So I'm going to become a better StarCraft 2 player. Why? Were you not trying hard enough before? No. But now that I know there's no Koreans, I'm really going to try now. Wait a minute, you weren't trying before. No, I was really trying, but now that I know there's 2 more tournaments in the year, I'll definitely try my hardest. Wait a minute, you're not even trying your hardest to be the best at this game. Like, that seems kind of shady, you know. No, but I wasn't. The problem is, because someone with my flag didn't win, I wasn't inspired enough to try and find it. Maybe you should find something else, mate. Maybe StarCraft's not for you. Have you ever thought of like painting or something? You can be wicked at that, you know. No, it must be StarCraft because there's not enough of people from my country in.
I think your opinion on why people are motivated is like, it's not necessarily the universal way, like people are motivated. People are motivated for different reasons. If they see that somebody else is winning, or the Koreans aren't going to be there and they have more opportunity, yeah, they will practice more. They will practice harder.
Except
that's
we already
a natural
did this,
thing.
Chris. We already did soft region locking in the other WCS regions. So where are all the new Stefanos and Nanowows, mate?
It was soft region locking, but there were plenty of Korean players in,
and there were plenty of players
America.
making round of 8s.
Plenty of what players? Foreign players, or yeah, there were. There definitely were.
Why didn't that inspire people to go, wow, if he can make the round of 8, I'll try harder. I'll make the round of 8.
I think it did inspire some people, but this is just another step, going one step further when it comes to region locking and inspiring even more people from the standpoint of even grassroots. Like we need, the StarCraft 2 community needs more players to want to play the game. I mean, I absolutely agree. What do you mean, why is that?
Well, I genuinely don't understand the point. Why does it need more players to play the game?
We need more players to play the game to have like a bigger player pool. What do you mean? Just more chances of a superstar rising. I mean, it's not gonna, the existing pool isn't necessarily gonna develop a superstar. I mean, it's a matter of numbers sometimes, man.
I don't really understand what the search for the Great White Hope is about, mate, because here's the thing. I don't need a superstar to arise. There's already superstars. They're called Koreans, mate. Love watching them play.
Yeah.
Don't watch them that much, but they're the only ones I do watch. Fantastic at the game. They have every style you could want under the sun. They have all the skill sets. They're all the people you want to watch. So as I said in my original tweet, if you actually want to watch superstars play CS StarCraft 2, then that exists, mate. Now, if you want to watch superstars from your country play, yes, you have a problem. And by the way, that's the way to phrase it. You have a fucking problem, mate. If you have to watch someone from your country. I love StarCraft 2. Do you really? I mean to say I love people from the Netherlands who play StarCraft 2. Really? Well, go to a fucking Netherlands LAN. Well, I wouldn't want to do that. I want to watch a StarCraft player from the Netherlands play in the final of WCS final. Well, that's a pipe dream, mate. Not if I ban Koreans.
It's not that.
Oh, good job. Good job, Kim. We'll put that into WCS. Love.
You're simplifying way too much. I mean,
can we change the fucking subject? We spent an hour on fucking StarCraft.
All right. Well,
that's way more attention than the game deserves. Come the fuck on.
Oh, fuck you, Richard. Fuck you. All right, let's talk about Riot let's talk about your favorite subject, Riot, and esports teams. So creating reality stars. We're seeing more of these video series from teams, particularly in League of Legends. TSM, I think, kind of started it with their Legend series, and then Cloud9, Fnatic. Recently, I've been catching some of those, as well as just the League of Legends esports YouTube channel having some. So my question to you guys is: there's obviously a move to try to create these kind of behind the scenes videos, more real, right? Real reality type of videos. And I think it's helping. I think it's helping audiences, kind of relate more to these players or
one
more
day
human.
It might
and that's what
inspire players to play the game so they could be in a reality show,
All right. So my question to you guys is this a notice? I mean, is this like helping in terms of value to the players?
I don't know if, before we even get to that point, I don't know if you're all ready for this truth bomb, right? Like, so I apologize if this fucks everyone up, but reality TV is an oxymoron. It's not real. None of it is real. It is a construct. You think it's real? You think those cunts who are in the Big Brother house behave like that when they're on the streets? No, of course they don't. You think that fucking man who pieced out by doing the Rocky speech and then chimping out hard with his fucking ape impression, you think he's going to do that at a job interview or anywhere else? Like, no, he's fucking not, right? These people play up to it. It's bullshit. It's artifice. And as someone that's worked in TV and actually seen these things be filmed, much like it was with CGS, you have a fucking producer who says, do you know what would be really good if we could just do this? Is there any chance you could do this? Like, for example, in CGS with the gaming one, there'd be a team manager there giving his team a motivating speech or trying to talk through some mistakes. The cameras weren't there. So a producer would go, oh, can you come along and do that again? And of course, the moment would be totally gone. It would be completely artificial and dry now. But they would do it because you have to, because you're on fucking TV, and it wouldn't be the same. And sometimes producers would even chip in and fucking be like, do you know what'd be really cool? if you quoted this. That'd be really good. And scene. And then they do like another fucking take of it. So it's reality TV is a load of fucking horse shit to fucking begin with. It's not fucking real. And I fucking hate it. It's actually one of the worst things that happened to the Western psyche was reality TV. You ever heard a cunt on the back of a bus or a train talking into their phone? They've got it on speaker, even though they could just put it to their ears. They got arms, but they're talking on speaker, and it's like, and they're arguing with them like super loud. Like, when did public transport become the office of the moron? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because they're like, oh, reality TV. People should get me on that reality TV. If everyone followed me around with cameras, oh Lord, the things they would see. My life is so interesting. Now I will be extroverted. And that's the kind of retard you have to fucking put up with day to day, all thanks to reality TV. So fuck Endemol, who made Big Brother, and fuck everyone else that has, perpetrated this absolute fucking load of shit that people have to digest. Now to esports.
Okay.
Now to esports. Right. So do you think esports, one of the fakest fucking industries going, so fake that every time somebody like Duncan opens his mouth, a horde of morons rush to misrepresent what he's saying? Right now, I'm awaiting the odd shots of how Duncan endorsed slavery because he used it as an example, or how Duncan wants only a white NBA because he said, should we try and push African Americans out of the NBA to make the point about Koreans in StarCraft? It's fake, and people like it to be fake. People don't want the truth. The truth hurts too much. If you analyze the truth about esports, you might realize, holy fucking shit, it's not as important as I think it is. Holy shit, that player that I really like is an asshole. Holy shit, the organization I support is fucking bent. They may not like it. And people like me go out and we tell the truth, and people like Duncan tell the truth, and we get shit on and castigated for it. If you think these reality shows show what it's like for a player to actually live in an esports organization, no. And I'll tell you, they definitely don't, because they don't show a team owner elbow deep in his arsehole saying smile for the camera, which is the fucking reality that every fucking player has to go through right now in this fucking scene. So we need to stop thinking about these as reality shows. There is no fucking reality presented. I've been in team houses all over the world. I see how these players live. I see how they're treated, okay? The ones that are treated well, few and far between. Why don't we do a real reality show? Perhaps someone like ESPN could do a documentary. Oh no, you're only interested in presenting the lie for money, like every other fucking shill who has come through esports. So I'll talk about whether it's good for players or not, but let's be real. This is a good lie for players. And that's all it is. It's a fucking lie.
Here's an interesting fact for you, Chris, is that I actually once worked and was friends briefly with someone who worked on an esports reality TV show. And he told me that it was a nightmare to even make the show. It was so hard to get any footage to fill that like weekly episode or whatever, that he literally had to make friends with one or two of the players, because all people did, by the way, was just sit there in their gaming house playing the game. So you can't film that and put that in one else. No one will watch it. So what he had to literally do was get the player to say stuff like, hey, yeah, just about to go out to some food now. Let's see what goes down when we do. Like, I had to just like make up the fucking. Okay. It's almost like the guy was like filling in the details between all the stuff happening. So the whole thing was fake, basically.
Yeah. I mean, and like, look, tell you what, this is a great fucking story. I think it was when Machinima were doing something for League of Legends, and they were making a League of Legends show. And it may or may not have involved a very popular North American organization that like to do things individually in the center of a map, perhaps, right? And what they did was, there was a bunch of fucking interviews like filmed for this show, and Riot Games had fucking veto on it. And they sent them the script, like, this is what we're going to use. This is like the storyboard. These are the quotes. And Riot asked them to cut bits out. And you think, well, that's normal. That's what veto approval actually is. But no, they didn't want to cut out whole segments or whole quotes. They wanted to cut out words and sentences in the middle that completely subverted the context of what the player was saying. So it fit this holistic Riot narrative that no one would ever trash talk a team, that pros are all fucking nice to each other and all get along, and it's one big fucking happy family. So there's your reality TV shows right there in esports. Somebody somewhere is getting veto approval on them. You can't use that footage. Don't use that. They can't say that. Hey, why don't we just change this bit? And remember, in League of Legends, by the way, you've signed a fucking contract that not just implicitly, but explicitly says Riot can alter your voice if they want to. Legally, they can do that. So how can anyone believe any of the shit they see? It's just marketing. These are adverts. That's all they are. They're not reality shows. They're not hard-hitting documentaries. We haven't had one of those in esports yet. And don't say Smash.
Smash.
Right? We haven't had one yet. We haven't had one. There's nobody going undercover. No one had let you in esports. We must believe in the lie. Keep printing the money. We must believe
documentaries are always edited. I mean, you're talking about like raw, unedited footage. I mean, is that what you? I mean, what do you?
Come on, Chris. What the fuck? Like, I could show you like a fucking documentary that was edited. It wasn't fucking edited to completely change shit. The series making.
What do you mean? Of course it was.
Making a murderer. Like, what? You telling me that guy didn't get fucked in the ass by the American justice system? Yes, maybe it's slightly one-sided. Still presents the truth, though, doesn't it? These present outrageous fictions that bear no resemblance to the reality. They are adverts. Dance for the camera, players. Okay. We're having such a good time. Is my Razer mouse in shot? What? This is reality, is it?
Okay.
It's not.
So it's not reality. So let's just talk. Okay. So ignore the reality of stars aspect of it. Making, they're creating celebrities by making these videos. Correct?
Are they?
I mean, I feel like they're trying to. They're trying to create, just some more accessible to these players or getting to know them more. And I feel like that's the motivation behind it. I mean, what do you think it is other than that? I mean, if it is an ad, isn't it an ad to try to get to know them better or just to?
Yeah, I mean, I suspect it's content for the sponsor, but that's just me being cynical, ChanManV,
Well, it's not even that. I mean, like, right, even if you remove sponsors from the equation, like, let's just say the League of Legends stuff, right? Who benefits from a player being a star in the current system? Everyone goes, well, the players do. All right, well, okay, let's analyze that statement, shall we? Let's analyze it using these things I like to dabble in, called facts, which apparently no one else in esports holds in very high regard. Okay, fact. Pretty much every contract, as standard in an esports organization, has a player signing away his image rights for fuck all. For fuck all. There's no fee for doing it. Just your salary that you should be getting anyway for being sick at the game. You sign away your image rights, okay? And you are owned by the organization. Now, equally on top of that, here's the other lie that people don't like to talk about in esports. Buyout clauses. I will explain this. This is how buyouts currently work in esports. A buyout clause is not for the other organizations that want to buy a player. A buyout clause is there so a player can buy himself out of a contract at any given time. And you go, well, that sounds very reasonable. Okay. But you cannot have somebody come to you and give you a job offer. That's tortious interference. If somebody encouraged you to sign another contract with another organization while under contract, you could be sued. You could be fucked. And organizations are under no fucking liability, no obligation to tell you that we've had offers from these other organizations. So you could be the most popular hot commodity in a particular game and you might not know it. The only thing you might have to go on is your gut instinct. Should I pay my $20,000 buyout fee and take the risk? What if it's all my savings gone? And I don't get another job? So players stay put. Now, all of these things are reality. There's no mechanics in place for players to leverage being a fucking star player. So who benefits? Could it be the organizations? Could it be? I don't know. Let me see. How do organizations make their money? Oh, they leverage players' popularity to go to sponsors and say, my player will use a mouse that you make, even though they fucking have never used it before. How much money does the player get for that? Could it be nothing? Oh, brilliant. This seems like a fair fucking deal. So the only way that the players actually benefit from being stars is they're more likely to get onto another organization that is going to ream their fucking arsehole non-stop because this is how esports contracts work, or they get a better presence for streaming money. And again, you think, okay, well, they must make loads of sick money on their streams. Some organizations even take a cut of that, by the way, right? It doesn't happen often, not at super high level, because it's not considered a viable revenue stream. But here's one thing they do. They do say you've got to stream for X hours. You've got to hit your deliverables. So, is it another job? Not something I can just enjoy and keep my money because I earned it by being the best at something? No. So these reality shows don't really benefit the players. If I was a player right now, I don't know if I'd partake in one. I'd certainly want an appearance fee. I'd certainly want some sort of bonus for doing it. Why the fuck should I promote an organization that I might not even be there for in 6 months? It's ridiculous. Yeah. So people have got to wake the fuck up and see these for what they are. Are they in-depth, grimy, gritty documentaries? No. Do they show...
They're definitely not that. I mean,
do they show the reality of being a pro esports player? No. Right? Do they act as a incredible vehicle for players to get wealthy based on their fame? No. Here's what they do. They sell products. They build a brand for the organization, and that is it. That is all they achieve. And that organization could be like, for example, a Fnatic, or it could be a Riot Games. Either way, having stars, very good for them. Being a star, not so good for the players. Not as good as it should be.
I do think, though, that they are like real reality TV shows, though, because I don't know anyone. Basically, everyone I know who watches reality TV shows is a fucking idiot pleb, and I don't watch esports reality TV shows, and I'm very interested in esports, because the problem is the amount of interesting stuff to all the filler that you have to go through, the ratio is way off, you know. If it was really interesting, I'd watch them all, but aside from, like, I tried watching the first one when it was the Game Cribs one with TSM. I watched a bit of that. Even that one, I quickly found out, like, some of these were just dog shit filler, and then the League of Legends one, like, I actually know the guy who does that. He does try his hardest, but there's only so much you can fill in, like 1 billion episodes about one split, you know. So the problem for me is it's the most casual viewing possible. So I don't even think it's that high quality a vehicle.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, why don't we take a quick break, and we'll come back and talk about just star players and see if they have any kind of leverage in terms of teams. All right, sit tight. We'll be right back.
All right, we got time to get a drink?